Psychiatrist Dr. Justin Frank says Donald Trump doesn't have the courage to handle loss. Check this out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. I have been looking forward to this all week. Dr. Justin Frank, MD, he is a psychoanalyst and clinical professor at the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Science at George Washington University. He's the author of numerous books, Bush on the Couch, Obama on the Couch, Trump on the Couch. His Twitter handle, and he's active on Twitter, you say hi to him, is Justin Frank, spelled just like it sounds, MD. Justin Frank MD is his Twitter handle. And Dr. Frank, welcome back to the program. Is there any place in particular you'd like to start, or I'd like to suggest that maybe we start with Bush and Obama and looking at their psychological profiles and learning what we can about them over the first half hour, and then spend the last half hour perhaps on Trump and talking about sociopathy and how it affects our society. But if you had another way that you'd like to get into all this, I'm open to it. What's on your mind today?
Well, I don't know about a half hour on Bush and Obama. We could do a little bit of that. I'd actually like to get on to some more things about Trump in terms of characteristics that he has in his character and some of the things that we've talked about before, but there's plenty going on now. And then the other question is, what? Start there?
Sure. Well, and then the other question is, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
I get these noises on this phone. The biggest, can you hear noises when I get pinged? No.
No,
okay.
No, it sounds fine.
Okay,
yeah, there might be a slight delay
and
between
everything
us,
looks
but that's
okay.
just technology.
Okay. So here's what I think is that what I think is that basically what we've seen is the way Trump has dealt with this election loss, and I wanted to start with that because I think that's very important on several different levels. If that's okay with you.
Please.
Because first of all, he talks about courage, and he wants some of the justices or a congressman or somebody to show courage and stand up and accept the fact that his election was stolen and that he really won. I think that he wants other people to have courage because he does not have courage. So he's wishing for somebody else to have courage. But the courage that he's lacking is really important because it's the courage to face loss. It's the courage to accept that he lost. It's not just about shame and humiliation. It's the courage to actually accept that he lost. And that's something that has from early childhood. His father said, you can never admit that you've lost anything. You always have to win. So when he talks about courage, he's actually talking about himself. The second thing is that when he talks about Make America Great Again, and he talks about the way he talks in his rallies, he's essentially mobilizing people's anger, but having them deny loss, that they deny their loss, because he's saying you don't have to deal with loss. You can just deal with the reality that I'm going to make America great. So he actually gives people encouragement to not have to face reality, the reality being loss. So I think one of the biggest themes is loss. And it's very interesting because that's the one thing that we know about President-elect Biden. He's had a lot of loss that he's faced, and that he has the strength to face loss. And he's a person who actually has courage, and I think Trump envies that. He is not conscious of it, but he cannot take the fact that somebody can actually acknowledge that he's had pain in his life. And that if you can't acknowledge loss, then what's going to happen when 300,000 people die of COVID? He can't feel empathy. He can't be humane, if you will. He's not able to do that. So he becomes more and more incapacitated or crippled in a way because there's a whole part of his life that he can't ever acknowledge. And the third part related, besides the courage and the loss, is that he's always had a fantasy of being rescued. Even though he says he's self-sufficient and self-efficient. He was always rescued by his father, by Roy Cohn, by Mark Burnett from The Apprentice. And I think he has this fantasy of being rescued now by the Supreme Court, that he's going to be rescued by somebody who has more power than he does and who's going to save him. So on the one hand, he seems very strong, but on another level, he has this deep need to be rescued, which he must deny. Other people need courage in order to stand up, but he has to deny to himself his deep need to be rescued, and it's very powerful. And I think that's what's... Go ahead.
No, finish your thought. I'm sorry.
No, just one last thought is that he, in his rallies, he has been able to speak to the people who have had terrible losses in their lives, who have felt marginalized, who felt that, and they feel in a way that he says, one of them even said after one of the rallies a long time ago, that he says what I think, but what I'm afraid to say. And so people feel very connected. So, but he is essentially giving people the permission to triumph over loss. Lock her up as a triumph over loss. Get rid of this person, any protester or anybody who kneels in front of the flag is a triumph over having to think about loss or having to think about the meaning of behavior. It's a triumphant thing. But what's happened since he's lost the election is now he needs the rallies to reaffirm him. So what was once him reaffirming them, now they have to reaffirm him. That's a lot.
To what extent is that need for being saved deep in the psyche of all of us? I mean, it seems like that's at the core of Christianity, the idea of salvation, that God will save us, that God sent his son to save us, etc. Is that a universal thing? And if so, how did it get so badly twisted with Trump?
Well, first of all, that's a great question, because I think that's at the core of a lot of this. The need to be saved is partly based on an experience of having been saved for most of us, and that is that when we cry and don't have words, our mother or a caretaker magically knows that we're wet, or that we're hungry, or that we're sleepy, or that we need a cuddle. So they can actually understand us without words. So we have a fantasy that we can be really understood straight away from early on. And that then we have, by the time we develop words, we live in a world where there is magic. So the biggest magic are certain kinds of myths, and the biggest myth, obviously, is Santa Claus, that we all, and as Christmas is coming up, we all believe in Santa Claus when we're little. I don't know what people believe in the Arab world in terms of some similar thing, but I'm sure they do. They have stories and myths. And those are about magic of being rescued, of being known, of being able to be understood, and that people know what to give you and give gifts. And what happens is that when the parents, I mean, this is just with really in normal, regular life when you have a parent or two parents, what happens is that by the time you're 4 or 5, you realize that your parents are human. They make mistakes, they screw up, they lose their temper, they sometimes forget to do things, or they are so busy they're not around, they're working and trying to make a living. Whatever it is, they become disappointed. So you have to shift that feeling of loss into something that's ready-made, and that's what you were saying about Christianity. It's ready-made. It's right there. God is waiting for the 5-year-old. And I think that that's one of the origins of religion.